Hey, it's unfa, and you're watching another monthly live stream. Let me know in the chat if you can hear me and see me properly. This one should be pretty well figured out technically. Okay, maybe I shouldn't say that right now because there's always some issues. If you don't know who I am, I am a music producer and sound designer. I currently work in game development as an artist. Among other things, I do sound effects for games and video trailers for them and music and other stuff like voice acting and such. That's my day job stuff. But after hours, I do music and also sound effects because I just love this stuff. And I also make video games when I have time. But I only use open source software and Linux for all of that. No freeware, no free but proprietary software. It's all open source and only on Linux. Of course, a lot of the software I use, probably majority of the software I use, also runs on Windows and sometimes even Mac OS. But I am here to promote Linux and show you guys that it's possible to do professional audio work, audio production, and not just audio, but multimedia in general, because I do lots of stuff, graphics, animation, video, VFX, whatever. And you can do this on Linux in a professional setting. Yeah, enough about me flexing. And every month I do live streams, 2-hour live streams, where I show you some music that I've made recently. If I made some, sometimes I just don't manage to do that. And then we make some music together. And after that, the last half an hour, I play viewer submissions and I comment on them. I give my feedback and I try to help people improve their work. Yeah, today is a little bit special because I've only done this once before, and today is the second time I'm doing this, and it's going to be much better, I hope. A little bit different also, but definitely much better. So, what is it? I'm going to do a live electronic music performance using nothing but free and open source software. So, I've been experimenting with non-session manager protocol, and I've been using a program called Agordejo or Agordejo. I don't know. It's Esperanto. And it's a program that helps you combine different audio production software into a single project. Because, for example, I need Carla, which is an open source plugin host, to host all my plugins, to root them. This is my setup. Where's the main MIDI input? Oh, I think it's somewhere here. Oh, yeah, there it is. The layout is a little bit messy right now. Things kind of went south, went apart, and just shifted places, but there was order in there when I made this. So I need Carla to host my plugins, but I also needed a non-mixer to easily see what's going on and be able to tweak my levels. Actually, after the fact, I was done, I figured out I don't really need non-mixer because it doesn't really provide that much value, because I still need to use plugins in Carla to control the levels with faders on my MIDI controller, which I will try to make visible for you right now. So it might be difficult a little bit. Yay. Okay. So this is the keyboard controller, and also the latency of this video feed is unfortunately going to be huge. But that's what I have. All right. We can do it kind of like this. Or maybe more like this. What do you think? That's gonna be a little bit of a... Oh, snap. How do I grab this camera? A little bit of the cat keyboard preview. It's not very... Oh my goodness. Yeah. I figured out everything except for this ahead of time. Okay. Let's do it like that. It's not going to be a huge help because you won't be able to see when I'm doing things, but you will be able to see what more or less I'm doing. Okay, you know what? Let's just kick it off and start having fun with this. And then I'm going to explain how it all works and how you can make your own. much everything except the drums is surge. What do you say? Let's wrap it up. Thank you very much. This was a piece I titled Breakage, because I expected breakage. It wasn't as bad as I thought. Alrighty, so I think our little helper camera ain't gonna help us anymore. Also, let's take the first sip of coffee. Oh my goodness. So it seems like you like that. Okay, awesome. Let's now break down how I made this. How does this work? I hope I'm gonna. I'm really excited. I think I'm shaking a little bit. Maybe I'm going to save this project, and you know what? Let's try and make another one. Not sure. Maybe I'm gonna try and save it. Okay, let's save it first. Okay, so the main thing happens inside of Carla. Carla is the plugin host in here. I'm gonna hide this. We don't need it. And this is the whole mess. The problem with this is that right here you're seeing both the nodes that are related to the live performance, the breakage piece, as well as the nodes related to me streaming. And also, unfortunately, because of the strain that streaming puts on my system, I had to keep the latency really high. You can see I'm running at buffer size of 1024, which is like, I don't know, 40 milliseconds of latency, something like that. So unfortunately, my timing accuracy on the controller was diminished by that because I practiced with a buffer size of 256. I didn't think about this, that I will have to probably turn it way down to avoid extras, and still we have 12 of these, but I think nobody heard them. I didn't. Yay. Zard says, Carla needs node groups like Blender. I agree. The replacement for node groups in Carla is to add a plugin, which is Carla Patch Bay. So then you have Carla inside of Carla, but there is no easy way of like grouping existing nodes into a group. I think this should be purely visual, like just collapse all the nodes I want into a single box with all the inputs and outputs, and let me give this a name. And if I double click, let me expand that and edit it. Okay, never mind. That's a side thing. Let's start from the beginning. So the main sequencer in this thing, or actually all the sequencing, was done with Stochas. I'm going to open up one of the instances. This is Stochas, and it was playing all the MIDI loops, which I have fed into instruments, and it's possible to affect how Stochas performs your loops with MIDI inputs, so that I have, for example, this is the bass. I have one layer, but I have 4 different patterns in here. And I am able to change which pattern am I playing with MIDI input. So, you know what? Let's play this. Let's play pattern 1. Fishy Pug Brewer says, why does Stochas have a lot of audio outputs? Honestly, I don't know. I think this must be something like control voltage outputs. I'm not sure really why. I didn't figure that out, but I just ignored them and did my thing. All right, so I have mapped MIDI notes so I can change my patterns. Let's play pattern 3. Or pattern 4. You see which pattern is played is indicated by this white box, and this is the pattern that I'm editing currently. And if you go to patch options right here, you can see there's MIDI mapping. And you can turn it off, so you don't have any way of controlling this. But its default it's set to yes. And then if you click on MIDI mapping, there's a bunch of pre-created MIDI mappings for you. So for example, you can change the pattern on all layers. And what you do is simply you click learn and hit a key. And it learns that. And you can change these parameters, you can add new mappings. You can mute the different layers. You can change pattern on the layers. You can transpose layers, so change pitch. There is also other things you can do, like change the number of steps or speed up slow playback, and do some other things. But yeah, for this to work at all, we need to connect our MIDI input. So I'm using a MIDI controller. It's an Oxygen 49 Mark IV keyboard. And here I have created a MIDI Thru plugin. Just here and go MIDI Thru. And this is the plugin I'm using. Unfortunately, Carla is spawning new plugins in random places. What this plugin does is it just passes through MIDI data. Why did I do this? Because it's way easier to organize your MIDI connections when you have points, like when you have like nodes, where you can push your inputs and then push your outputs from. So I just have one thing to connect. If I start this up and want to use a different controller, let's ignore the fact that my mappings wouldn't work probably, but I just need to connect my hardware to this MIDI Thru, and all the rest is already connected because everything else is connected through this MIDI Thru plugin. So I'm using a lot of MIDI Thrus to get this going. So one MIDI Thru, and I have drums. I have Stochas. So every instrument has the Stochas sequencer, where I created some patterns, and I'm feeding out the data from Stochas through a MIDI channel filter, because I wanted to separate my instruments by channels. So I decided drums is gonna be channel 1. So this is a plugin called MIDI Simple Channel Filter, and all it has is which MIDI channel you want to pass through. There are some other plugins that supposedly do the same, but the simple MIDI channel filter is the only one that really works properly and is super fast to set up, because there's a bunch of MIDI filter plugins, but for example, in one of them you need to go through all the 16 channels and decide, no, I don't want to route it to anything, just discard this, because they are made for some more complex stuff. This is a simple channel filter. It just picks the channel you want and discards everything else. Zard asks, shouldn't drums go to channel 10? That's the general MIDI specification. I don't like that specification. I think drums are the absolute fundament of everything I do, so it's channel 1. Bass is channel 2. Pads are channel 3. Leads are channel 4. Kind of like that, yeah. The fabled channel 10, Lifeline says. Oh, yes. So I'm using simple MIDI filter. Then it goes into two things, because the drums are divided into two separate instruments, actually. Let me bring up my non-filters. Let's mute the drums. Actually, I'm gonna go over the other mixer. Oh, snap. Ah! Can't find my stuff. Oh, there we go. So, no drums, no pads, just bass. So maybe let's set it up to something. Okay. Actually, no, wait. I was supposed to talk about drums. Okay. we have two parts. So the first thing I did is I used Black Pearl Drumkit, which is AVL Drumkit. So you go Black Pearl. And I use the Drumkit multi version, so I can root out all the separate parts and mix them however I want. This Carla instance is related to live streaming, so let's hide it. And okay, in my sequencer, what I've done is I've created a few layers. As you can see here, we have layers, and I called layer first kick and snare, layer 2 hi-hat, layer 3 ride cymbals, and layer 4 is fill. And I've mapped my MIDI controllers buttons, actually drum pads, which are MIDI notes, which are sending MIDI notes on the channel 10. It's a quirk of this controller that always sends these on channel 10. The fabled channel 10! And I mapped those. So in my patch options, I said MIDI mapping, and I scrolled down to mute, unmute, layer 1, toggle. And it's also cool because you can have separate things or not. There's also next and previous, so I could actually change patterns, like just go from any. Rob Vandenberg says, I was away for a bit. How many crashes? Nothing crashed. Nothing. And my voice wasn't even muted on the start of the stream. Do you get that? That's impossible. It's just inhuman levels of technical awesomeness and non-breakage. That's like, it just, the title of this project is Breakage, and no breakage occurred live. I am super stoked about that. Nothing broke. It worked perfectly, flawless. I can't really say that often, but it did work flawlessly. Any fuck-ups regarding the playback was my fault with the performance, not the software. Okay, so I mapped my drum pads to muting and unmuting different layers, so that when you route your MIDI input, you know, from my controller through the MIDI Thru plugin to the Stochas plugin, because you could just disable this and it will just play its loop over and over. But I wanted to have some control. Wow, that's wind. Did you hear that? So I can map my my notes. So let me hit something. Okay, that's D1, okay? And now if I press D1, which is a drum button, I'm going to... actually, yeah. Let me map all of these. Okay, now close. And now you see all of these are muted. Okay, shit stuff. All right, yeah. I can unmute every single one. And I've been doing this a lot. Having the kick and drum, kick and snare. Excuse me. Kick and snare, hi-hat, ride and crash cymbals, and a little fill, which sounds like this. And this is a very interesting part of Stochas, and the name of it comes from stochastic, which means random. And that is, you can input multiple notes on this, and they have a probability of being played. It works in two modes. There's either monophonic mode, which means there's only one note going to be played for each of these. And then you have probability of low, medium, high, and on. Actually, no, you need to high. But there's also polyphonic, which means every note has individual probability of being played. So you can construct randomized chords out of this or some other stuff. There's also really cool things, which is you can string notes together so that if one randomized note happens, you can also use this chain tool to create a sequence of things that's going to happen after it, but only if this triggers. So if I go to probability and switch this to... Now it didn't play. Didn't play. Didn't play. Didn't play. Now it played, and it played the whole sequence. There's also negative things. You can say, if this played, doesn't play that. So if you hover your mouse over this chain button, on the bottom of the window, you can see, select which edit mode is currently active. Sorry, if I click, oh no, if I just hover my mouse on the grid. Click and drag on valid cells to create chains to other cells. Control drag to create a negative chain. That means if this happened, don't play this. This played, this doesn't play. If this plays, doesn't play that. Don't play this. So now it should play only this or this. Never two at the same time. This played. This played this time. You see, this is pretty amazing because with the simple tools, you can create incredibly complex, randomized musical structures. And then you play a loop, but it's not just a simple loop. It's a whole spectrum of musical possibilities that are generated on the fly. It's pretty crazy. This helps, I think, bring a little bit of life into the drum beats, etc., because they all are a little bit random, so you can never know what's going to happen. Like it sounds like there's a little bit of an improvisation in there, like it's an actual human player. It's not too much happening in there. But in this hi-hat part, I have a little part here that can play, and if it plays, both notes play at the same time, or in sequence. It's low probability. Didn't play. Didn't play. Come on. There it is. And it plays randomly, right? Now, the very crazy thing about this is you can chain Stochas instances together, and you can use your second instance in such a way that you use the MIDI mappings and make the first instance send MIDI notes that will trigger pattern changes and layer toggling in the second instance. So this way you have like a structure sequence, like a structure sequence of Stochas that is then feeding an actual pattern MIDI stuff, which is playing out. It's like, God, I've seen people do this. It's crazy. If you do like, if you create 3 levels of that, you can pretty much have a completely randomized procedural song that has structures, that has, things like after a bridge there has to be a chorus, or after a chorus there has to be a breakdown, or can be a breakdown, or can be a solo, or whatever. And you can do this all with Stochas. And because it's a plugin and not a standalone program, or maybe you can run it as a program, but because it's a plugin, I can have many of these inside Carla and pretty much have all of my live performance contained in a single Carla project. And you might ask, why do I even use Agordejo or Session Manager? I do it because first I've wanted to try it, I wanted to figure it out. But the second thing, a very important thing that it does is, thanks to Agordejo, I was able to avoid name collisions with my live streaming setup. So using Agordejo, you could have multiple projects running at the same time, and because it's prefixing everything with a randomized string, nothing will collide. Normally, when I just load a Carla project and my live streaming setup is running when I have a Carla project already, sometimes things connect not where they should be connecting, because I can have plugins with the same name, or if I load my project before I load my live streaming setup doesn't work because things get connected to the wrong plugins, and it's not good. So we can see that, for example, this says Carla-multi-client dot a random string /Stochas, and I've renamed this manually. I said rename, and I said Stochas, it was Stochas. So I said Stochas drums. And this way I can also help myself organize what I'm seeing on this Carla canvas. Another thing you might want to do is go to settings, configure Carla, and in canvas, change the size of the canvas, because by default, it's much smaller. You have a limited space where you can lay out your plugins and connections. So I set it to maximum, so I have maximum space available for for laying out this stuff. Okay, now we have the sequence. After this, I have the Black Pearl drum kit, which is just playing its thing. Nothing fancy going on here. I just had to find in Stochas which notes are playing which instruments so that it responds. And I sent the same thing to Geonkick. And I've created this little Geonkick pattern. Oh, I muted it. Okay. Let me grab my non-mixer. I've created this little drum and bass drum kit in Geonkick with just hi-hat, 2 hi-hats, kick, and snare. There's no cymbals. So it's just a kick, a snare, 1 hi-hat, and second hi-hat. And I'm using this to reinforce the first one because this Geonkick is playing the same pattern as the Black Pearl drum kit. TNO says, I'm confused. If you have any questions, just write them down and I'll try to explain things. Also, if any of this is confusing, if I'm glancing over things too quickly, please let me know. I really want this to be, you know, I'm doing this for you to learn things. So don't be afraid to ask questions or tell me if I'm going too fast or something. All right, TNL says that his confusion was about something that someone wrote above. Okay, so not in the chat. Okay, so here's Geonkick, and I'm sending it into a CStrip plugin. What is CStrip? CStrip, or Channel Strip, is a plugin by Chris from Airwindows, which is an excellent plugin for something like that because it has everything you need in one place. It's a channel strip, as the name suggests, and it has a bunch of things. It has a basic equalizer with treble, shelving equalizer with treble, bass, and mids, and you can change the frequencies. It has a low pass and a high pass filter. It has a noise gate. It has a compressor. It has a something. I don't know what time lag is. Maybe it's a delay. And it has final output gain control. Now, to control this, what I've done is I routed another MIDI through. I've used another MIDI through. So this is my first MIDI through, which gathers the single controller, physical controller input, and then send it out to other things. And then I have another MIDI through just for controlling plugins. So not for driving my sequencers, because the rest is sent to sequencers more or less. Sometimes to plugins also, but well, yeah. That just, this was developing along some time, and I was changing my approach a little bit, and I was learning things. So I've used this second MIDI through, and I'm sending things to plugins like this CStrip for Geonkick. And now, when you're setting up MIDI CC control in Carla for a plugin, there's a few things you should look out for. The first thing is that by default, MIDI control channel is set to 1. And then if you're on MIDI channel 1 and you move a fader, this thing is gonna happen and it's gonna move as well. One of the controls is panning, I'm sure, or something else. Okay, it's not. Never mind. The thing is, this is messing with me, and often I find myself confused. What the hell is going on? Wait, am I playing this too loud? Rodenberg says, ouch! Thanks! Okay, I played this too loud. Alright, sorry. Should make my headphones much louder so I can hear how much I'm deafening you. This beat is way too loud. Huh! Okay, that's better. Sorry about this. Okay, so this CStrip thing is every plugin you insert into Carla is going to have this enabled. So on channel 1, you will be controlling volume, dry, wet, left and right panning. And you don't want that usually. So just set this to N, just this arrow, and just send this to, so no MIDI channel is going to control these. What I've done next is go to parameters, and here you can see I've mapped some stuff. For example, I've mapped this high pass knob to a button. So I did, let's unmap this. That's a high pass slider, and I did MIDI learn, and I pressed the button, and it mapped that as a MIDI CC change, and now if I click, it toggles. So I can disable, and I figured out, oh, I can bypass bass in my drums and basses with a button. That's really cool. It can be very helpful for some drops and build-ups. It's kind of weird, but it works. Another thing is, of course, I wanted to control the levels. So I have a bunch of faders on my controller, and I wanted to map them. So what I've done is, let's unmap this, and let's MIDI learn it. I'm going to move the fader. And now it's learned. This channel strip plugin has a range of -18 decibels to +18 decibels, I believe. I don't want to check the loudest parts because I don't want to deafen you. The thing is, it was a bit difficult because it never goes to 0 or -infinity. So you can never mute a channel with this. It's more for tweaking, less for like full-on muting. So you should always be able to mute with like, you know, disabling a sequence or stopping playback. I don't know. Now, a very interesting thing I found is that you can now in Carla control the range that you're assigning. So you see in here, if I click on these 3 dots, you can set minimum and set maximum. If I set maximum to 0.1, if I move my fader, I move it all the way up. This is all the way up, 100%, and it's right here. So you are able to actually better utilize your MIDI controller because you can focus your precision in the range where you want. So you're assigning some, you know, filter cutoff, and you don't want to be controlling the filter cutoff on the whole range, just, you know, between 2 kilohertz and 16 kilohertz. Because the rest, you're not going to be using that. You can do it, and you have increased precision, because all these 127 values that MIDI CC delivers are going to be distributed in that usable range and not just lost somewhere. I'm going to reset this, because what I do is I left this on the maximum range, and then I used this volume parameter of the whole plugin. I turn it way down so that when I turn on this output gain to maximum with my fader, it's still an acceptable value. But if I turn it all the way down, it's pretty quiet. Okay, so that's pretty much how I set up this mixer strip thing. Let's go further. So now maybe I'm going to talk about here's some static processing. There's just a noise gate for the kick and the snare separately in the Pearl drum kit. And then they are equalized. So I'm equalizing the kick and I'm equalizing the snare separately with X42 parametric equalizer, which is really nice and simple to use and has a nice GUI. Now these are non-mixer strips. So I use them to organize my signal flow. So I'm going to show you how this works. In non-mixer, you can very easily add channel strips. You just press A and you have a new strip. So let's call this breaks. And now we can change the amount of channels. So by default it's mono. I can make it stereo. Now if you click on this fader, you see there's a processing stack. And you have a gain control, which is of course routed to this fader. But you can also have inputs and outputs. So this is inputs and this is outputs. So if I wanted to route everything to master, you can also drag and drop this. say I wanted to route this bus to my master bus, I'm going to just click this and drag it onto here. And it's been added. So this makes it a little bit easier to connect things. And also here we can see that it's sent to limiter stereo, which is the master limiter for this whole project, and non-mixer DAW. This is a non-mixer instance that I'm running for the live stream. This non-mixer. This is my live streaming non-mixer. This is my microphone, my secondary microphone, both microphones, pulse audio if I want to use something from YouTube or something. DAW is all the inputs from Ardor, and also this project. Effects was something for vocal effects. Monitor is my playback. I can listen to my own voice if I want to check how it sounds. And master goes to OBS. Yeah. Give me back Carla. Yeah, this one. Okay, so I'm using these non-mixer stuff to organize the project. I could very well just probably go with something like amplifier. Is it stereo? It's mono. I could go amplifier stereo or simple amplifier. Example amplifier. Yeah, stereo amplifier is probably something I could use. And here I could probably just dial in gain. Oh, actually it's a fader. You can't boost it. So I could use this instead of non-mixer to organize, kind of like MIDI Thru. Actually, we should have an audio through plugin. There should be an audio through plugin, really. Because yeah, that's needed. All right, so here I have elements of the drum kit, the acoustic drum kit, and I'm using the non-mixer to also control some effect sends. So I've created, let me move it to the left because you're not gonna see it so well. I've created a reverb bus where I've added a plugin in Carla, and I'm sending my snare and hi-hat to it. So let me unmute this. Let's mute this. So within non-mixer, you can create sends. So here, if you right-click, you can insert an aux, and then you can grab and select where you want to send this aux, and you can change the gain of that aux. So you can make it louder or make it quieter. So this is pretty much, sending to extra buses. I think the name collision caused this to not work. Yeah, so I can give this more. Also, if you hit Alt F, you can switch all of the node strips between fader and signal. So Alt F toggles between them. I can turn up the reverb, my global send. Unfortunately, I haven't figured out how I can control these things with MIDI CC. And if why isn't there like MIDI CC option for this? I can't understand. Only OSC or control voltage. And to use control voltage, unfortunately, non-mixer doesn't expose this as control voltage. It exposes this as audio inputs. So you need to actually use a MIDI CC to control voltage plugin, and then use this control voltage to audio converter plugin to even drive this. So I said, forget it. I'm gonna use Carla and amplifier plugins. Actually, I ended up using CStrip plugins to control my levels within Carla. So the non-mixer is pretty much used only to monitor my levels and organize the things and help with routing signals, because dragging and dropping these is quite nice. Alrighty, let's go further. Maybe I'm gonna hide this. Let's go. All right, so there's these individual mixer strips, which are then routed to the master of the drum, so like submix for drums. Here it is. And this is further sent to some other stuff, basically to Swanky Amp, which is a very nice guitar emulation. So I use this to give these drums a little bit of a gritty, old school vibe. And I could probably... Actually, I do that. I'm controlling drive on this amplifier with one of the knobs. And how I did this, of course, was open this. So right-click and edit on a plugin. Make sure this is on N. And here I found preamp drive, and I got MIDI learn. For this one, maybe I should have set maximum and minimum values, because it goes to pretty ridiculous. After that, I'm applying some multiband compression with LSP Multiband Compressor. You can see it turns down the snare quite a lot. After that, I'm using Pilgrim by Artican Audio, which is an amazing plugin for live performances because it puts the combines together and a low pass and a high pass filter, what you control with a single knob. So I'm moving my knob to the left, I have a low pass. I'm moving it to the middle, nothing's happening. I'm moving to the right, I have a high pass. Simple as that, but really there is no other plugin that does this, which is kind of beyond me because this seems like such a fundamental thing to do. No, all the plugins we have are either low pass or high pass, never both at the same time. Like this is so brilliant to just, for live performances. I can high pass, I can low pass. Like I believe Mix has effects that work like this, but I wouldn't be using Mix to host effects for live performances that weren't DJing. So yeah, the Pilgrim from Artican Audio is the filter I've used for the drums, simply because it's very easy to control with a single knob. And after that, we have another CStrip. And in here, I'm only controlling the levels with a fader. Nothing fancy. Now, this goes to a channel strip on another non-mixer, which is the main one. It's drums A for acoustic. Not really, just first part of drums. And this then... Oh! This then goes to drums, which is a like a submix for these two. So I have drums A, drums B, and there is drums. So I have these, I have these, and I have both mixed together. And from this, actually I'm gonna do this. I'm sending it to B.Jumblr, which is an amazing plugin, and it's just fantastic for live performance because you can do so much stuff with this. Like pretty much all the drum fills were done with B.Jumblr. And that's because, and also it has like, it creates so much possibilities, so many possibilities in what you're doing, because you can slice and rearrange audio streams on the go, live. So when I play my drum beat, and right here we have multiple patterns. So I created some patterns. These are patterns I made. And now this is an addition that was added in some after, this wasn't there from the beginning, but I've realized that B.Jumblr now has an option to control which pattern you play with MIDI. So if you click on this little guy, you have options. You can MIDI learn what will trigger this particular pattern. So if you have a grid controller where you can have a lot of buttons, you can map those to the button presses. So I did set it to a knob. And I set different values. So value 0 is the bypass effect, which is just no change. The value 2, not 1 but 2, it gives me a little bit of more leeway to like go back to the bass one, is first thing. So I want to move my knob a little bit. Yeah, it's quite difficult. I mean, knobs are not ideal for this. Yeah, so this is one of the patterns. And this just processes all my drums. So whatever I do on the drums, it gets sliced and rearranged. Now I'm moving the Arctican filter control with my MIDI controller, and B.Jumblr is creating these nice repeating patterns of the filter sweeps I'm performing. Which is pretty cool. I can change the pattern. Yeah, this is very... Let's change to the other drum kit. That's pretty much the same thing. I kind of wish you could set a range so that I could like, or maybe even make this easier, like have a tool that will let me use a knob to switch between all the patterns, and then it will automatically like map different values and like show me a little arrow that's moving, and I can see that when I'm moving my knob, that the arrow is going from left to right and just selecting different patterns. That could be very cool, because right now it's very difficult to switch these patterns with a knob, and unfortunately I don't have enough buttons on my MIDI controller. So I think if there could be some better ways to control this with a knob or a fader, it could be really cool. You can also rearrange those if you like. And you can delete them and add another one. Let's try another. So you can pretty much do live breaks. And the last one. It's maybe a hi-hat. Yeah, B.Jumblr is a beast, and learning it is not terribly simple because it's quite complex, but once you learn it, it's like, it's so cool. It's a little bit unintuitive to first figure out how you do this, so just, when you load it up, start with a simple thing, go with a pattern with a small amount of steps, and just start arranging them, see if you can get a feel. Oh, by the way, what I'm doing is also I'm changing the step edit mode from add to replace. If you get add, you can layer stuff. So if I go back to this, I can have multiple slices playing at the same time. So I do replace, and then if I enter a slice somewhere, it's not going to be, only one slice is going to be playing at the same time, which is what I wanted. This also can be used for vocals, and you could feed live vocals into this to create some glitchy effects, or slicing, vocal chops. You can perform vocal chops live with this, and if you feed it into autotune, you can do this live with FOSS, free and open source software. There's also B.Oops, which is a plugin that has many different effects like distortions, bit crushing, reversing, speeding up. It can do scratches. It can do a bunch of stuff. I haven't used it. I kind of ran out of time to prepare. anything more complex, but I figure this is already a bit complex, and we like have 15 minutes to finish the description of this before we're gonna play your submissions, and we're still not done. Not done, far from done. Yay. So after B.Jumblr is out, and you know now how to map your MIDI controller to B.Jumblr, it goes to master, which is this little bus here, which contains everything. And from this bus, I send it out to my OBS. Here is my non-mixer in my live streaming setup, non-mixer in my live streaming setup. That is, by the way, I want to do this. Just give myself a little bit more leeway. Yeah. So I send this to my headphones, which are here. No, sorry. First I'm sending it to a master limiter, which is X42 DPL, Digital Peak Limiter. It's an amazing limiter. It's really a great plugin. It sounds very clean. And recently it's been updated, and you can either work on decibels full scale or decibels true peak. So this pretty much means it has oversampling in the center and inside, and it can, you know, make sure that the true peak is not gonna cross. It's a very simple but very good limiter. I can recommend it a lot. It doesn't seem like much, but it's doing its job very well. DNF says, I'm grateful that unfa keeps this available afterwards. So much information. Yeah, this is kind of an info dump. I hope this live stream is gonna have a, you know, review value, replay value. All right, maybe let's go back and talk about the bass. I'm going to Control P is a shortcut to hide and I'll show this panel, where I can set the tempo of my project and also stop and start and stop playback. Let's go to bass. So this is the Stochas sequencer for the bass, and in here it's a little different than what it was for drums, because I'm not using layers. Everything but layer 1 is empty. Instead I have multiple patterns, so if I switch to pattern 1, you can see there's some possibilities in mono mode. Now, the second pattern, it adds a little bit of variation to that, and the third pattern is a totally different thing. Fourth pattern is also a different version of this with more notes. So I kind of have like two musical themes going on in these bass lines that each have two versions, like a less intense version and a more intense version. Not too much stuff going on. Just as before, I'm using MIDI mappings to change the pattern that I'm playing, using drum pads on my MIDI controller, which is learning these channel 2 MIDI messages to play a single note. Just hit learn and you're ready to go. Oh, one important thing I forgot. Every layer can play on a different MIDI note. MIDI channel. And you see I'm using output MIDI channel 2. That's because I wanted to dedicate every instrument its MIDI channel, so that also I can play them live. And if I switch to pattern 5, and how I do this is oh, mute layer. Okay, I can unmute layer. Mute all layers. Now I can play an actual melody with my keys. And the thing that allows this is in patch options, there is pass-through MIDI data. By default, it's set to none. So, and if I smash my keyboard, nothing's gonna happen. If I go to all, it's going to pass through everything. But if I go unhandled, it's only going to pass messages that are not used for other stuff. So, you know, if I had some MIDI notes that were like, this way I could like reserve a part of my keyboard, like a 1 octave on my keyboard, for controlling patterns. And the rest of my keyboard could be used to perform and play live. And what, you know, I can like, I believe there's a name for this, and like contact or sphiz. Like you have keys that are dedicated to controlling the instrument. And you can do the same here. So if you use unhandled, I could have an octave on my keyboard that will change the patterns and layers and mute stuff, etc. But I could also play on my instrument. So yeah, by default it's set to none. So then you can't play your instrument manually. Everything has to go through Stochas, which also has a record option. So you can add a note one at a time to a new pattern, like yep. Let's unmute this. I need to unmute the layer. How do I go this? Is there like a current? It seems like you actually need to control which pattern is played with a MIDI controller. You can't do it with mouse, I think. Yep. There's also a bunch of other settings, like a different time forms of playback. Anyway, you can record stuff into Stochas, so you can use like a live looper where you can when you build up your groove one note at a time, or I don't know, you could probably do a lot of crazy stuff. So yeah. After the sequencer, we're going through a MIDI channel filter again on MIDI channel 2. I renamed this to channel 02 because, you know, that's easier for me to tell. And then we're going into Surge. Here is Surge, and this is the patch I'm using. And you can see I'm used a bunch of macros. And I've learned these, I assigned these macros to MIDI CC controls. So what I had to do is, yeah, I used this MIDI input on channel 2. So now if I switch my keyboard to channel 2, if I move knobs, I think I disabled MIDI pass-through, and that means, yeah. MIDI pass-through also means MIDI CC changes, or MIDI CC messages. So if you set none, you can't like get MIDI CC changes from Stochas. So this pass-through also helps me control my plugin. So I have this cutoff macro here, which is just used for this cutoff. And why am I using a macro instead of just learning this directly? Because I could. And that's because I have more control. I can set the range, because I can set my start position, and with the macro I can control how much range I have. So now my knob all the way up, I can set my range. I can also reverse this. So if I middle click and middle click again, now when my knob is on the bottom you can see this, but now when my knob is at 0, I have high frequencies passing through, and when it's on maximum it's all low pass. So using macros is giving you more flexibility. Also a pro tip, you can use your middle mouse button to toggle between setting the base value for controls versus setting the macro or modulation source value. I'm also using resonance, another knob, which is assigned to resonance. So the two together you can have some fun. There's also filter balance. What I've been experimenting. This name isn't reflective of what's this doing. What it's really doing is just controlling a notch filter. You can move it and produce these interesting things. I believe it's also affecting the threshold because it's like applying an amplitude somewhere. Like, yeah, it's doing a bunch of things. Macros are powerful. It's good to use macros. All right, so this is the stuff that's happening inside of Surge. There's also reverb tape, chow tape, and a limiter to even out the levels when the low pass is hitting hard, or when the resonance is going wild. And after this, we go into CStrip again to control. And now I copied this, I cloned this plugin, and the great thing is that you can do that in Carla. I say I want to copy the CStrip that's controlling my Geonkick. Okay, let's clone. And now here is a clone, and I can just use it, and it has everything copied. Oh, does it? I think you need to connect the MIDI through as well. Sorry, the MIDI inputs. Okay, it doesn't have it copied. I don't know. Previously it did copy it. Let's remove that. You can see that it's still playing in the background, and I can clone plugins, rename plugins, delete plugins, and it doesn't glitch out. Sometimes there's a little bit of a dropout, but usually it just works. And also you can see that nothing crashed. We're doing this for 1.5 hours, and I've been like playing with this for another 1.5 hours before the stream. It's pretty freaking solid. I wouldn't be like worried about crushing with a live set. Like I wouldn't be nervous going up on stage with this, as pretty much I just did. Okay, the bass, and then we go into B.Jumblr, another thing, and then Starchild. So, the cool thing is that this is Starchild, I'm now enabling it. Let me open up this. So, Starchild is a granular processor by Chris from Airwindows. And what I've done here is I mapped two controls in this plugin to my MIDI controller. One of them is a knob controlling the grain size. So this is CC16 on channel 1. It's a knob. I just said MIDI learn, move the knob, and there it is. And this is sent to me from the Omni MIDI Thru. You see, I named it Omni because this is going through all the channels. There's no filtering, so that no matter which MIDI channel I have set on my keyboard, these are going to go through. I can switch my keyboard to MIDI channel 3, and if I move it, it still receives the message on channel 1. How? Because this is a different kind of plugin. This is MIDI channel map. And MIDI channel map is a complex plugin where you can select where each MIDI channel has to be sent. So I just set all the MIDI channels to be sent to channel 1. And this means all my MIDI CCs are going to MIDI channel 1. So I can control, I can have like global controls which are independent of what MIDI channel my keyboard is currently operating on. Because when I move my knobs, it's also sending MIDI CCs on different channels. This way I could have like, a bunch of faders being global controls and a bunch of faders being local controls, which means they respond to MIDI channels, and on MIDI channel 1 I have different things than on MIDI channel 2. So when I page through MIDI channels, I can change different things, and that's what I'm doing with instruments, with the drums and the bass and the pad. These are things that are localized to a single MIDI channel. So when I'm paging through my controller using MIDI channels, I can control different things. If I had, a 16 by 16 knob
controller, I could just map everything and don't have to page at all, but I don't. So this is a compromise that lets you, you know, do complex things with just one MIDI controller that isn't totally powerful. Okay, now the cool thing about this as well is that I can toggle this effect with a button. So I learned it to a button, and it works as a toggle. So when I hit it once, it goes to 100%. If I hit it twice, it goes back to 0. And I believe this is a setting in this MIDI controller. You can configure how the buttons work. They can either send a note on, or note off, or a CC change, or toggle. And I set them to toggle so I can do kind of stuff like this. So I can use this to toggle an effect, and this is really cool because I can combine this with this thing and... The problem is Starchild isn't really made for automation. It creates big ugly glitches, so more or less I'm just changing this and enabling it when I'm not moving the knob, changing the grain size. Yeah, so that's Starchild. I'm also using MatrixVerb on the drums. Nothing is mapped in here, so yeah, it's just a static reverb on the drums. B.Jumblr on the bass. Yeah, there's another thing. I just copied this pattern, so I can also change it. Oh, I love this pattern. My goodness, that's so cool. Yep, so I'm just using a knob to alter my patterns. And because I can, you know, play a different MIDI pattern underneath, and I can change my processing, I have quite a lot of different options. And also, you know, I can use this Starchild effect to spice things up. Yeah, there's a ton of fun you can have with this. I am going to upload the whole project so you can play it on your own. Okay. That's it. I hope you have enjoyed this. And now I'm just going to save my Agordejo project. So let's go breakage, save, and close. Let's hope nothing crashes when I do this, because, you know, everything can happen. But no, it just closed everything and we're still working. And yeah. So that's it. I'm going to upload this so you can open it up and play with it. And now it is time for music submissions. My dudes. Just let me find the chat. Snappity, okay. Ah, my cool transition is all broken now. Alrighty. Let's go. Something did break after all. Yep. Oh, I know what. Oh, snappity. Okay. Alrighty, let's go. The first track is titled 32 Delay by SG75. Sounds lovely. It was made with Ardor, MDA ePiano, Drum Gizmo, with DRS kit, a real guitar and a real bass, Helm and Tal noisemaker, and lots of delay, of course. He also says, recording real instruments to a click is challenging. Do you have any tips for a rusher like me who tends to hit the strings of the guitar before the click? Maybe you could delay your backing track in your monitoring. Don't worry, I also have to correct timing with editing a lot when I play live instruments. I love how this sounds. Seems I haven't looked too quiet. Is that better? This is lovely. The drums, Drum Gizmo Drumkits sound amazing. This is so believable, like so lively. So that was 32 Delay by SG75 with live guitars and canned drums from Drum Gizmo. Awesome. Another track is titled Individual Curiosity by My Lo-Fi. Lovely. And My Lo-Fi says this was made with Ardor, Bristol, which is a collection of emulated retro synthesizers, Drum Gizmo using Crotchell kit, MDA ePiano as well, Set B3, which is a Hammond synthesizer, Spiz, and Guitarix. Oh, this is awesome. And he also writes, we need an LD2 port for Bristol. I agree. These should be plugins. It feels to me like you two could do an album together. Your styles are very compatible. I really like the vocals. Great performance in there. overall mix is really great. So the highs and the hi-hat are a little too prominent to my liking. They are a tiny bit annoying. So these headphones are accentuating that. Awesome. That was Individual Curiosity by My Lo-Fi. And now a track titled Tales from the Yeast Side by ST. We're going away from the acoustic mood, upping the tempo a little bit too. And he says, this was made with LMMS. I get Daft Punk vibes. Liking the traveling hi-hat, though it's a bit too harsh in my ears. Give me bassline. Like the best of house and disco smashed together. And also the tempo feels like drum and bass. I wouldn't be surprised if it suddenly dropped into breakbeats and syncopated kicks and snares. TNO says, I would put this in a set. This is good. It's great. I'm loving this. It's perfect music for the party. Soft, bouncy as all heck. Lumifaza says, buy download link? I don't know. I still don't have links to profiles of the artists, but if you leave a comment asking for that, I'll try and ask the artist to provide something. Alrighty, so that was Tales from the Yeast Side by ST, and now the Livestream song by Steve Pixis. Oh yeah. The intro sounded a little bit weak and boring, but once the bass dropped... Oh, there's some hardstyle stuff in there. Oh, nice. I'm really glad we're changing chords in here. We've got some vocals in here. Here's the lyrics. I thought my computer broke. Oh my goodness, you're killing me, God. Please don't. I'm not a God. Sorry I didn't fulfill this one. I'm loving this. Oh my goodness. And also it's under 3 minutes, so there's not gonna be anything truncated. Because that's the limit. Oh my goodness, that was amazing. So that was the live stream song by Steve Pixis, which was amazing and had lyrics, and he actually wrote a song about these live streams we were having. Awesome. Now, a song by Quantizer, titled Ping the Pineapple. Quantizer always delivers some really crazy grooves. This. I love these drums. It's like a blend between drum and bass, but slow, and two-step. This is so groovy. Holy shit. I love this bass. This was made with LMMS, Zenith Effects, Vital, and Audacity. And he says, tried something different with beats, went sideways pretty soon, and this came out. Things that go sideways for you go really good for me. I love this. Please do more. God, this is so cool. I love this beat. What a groove, man. Yeah, this was made with LMMS. Rob Vandenberg is joking, but it doesn't clip. It's pretty loud, but it doesn't clip. My goodness, this is so cool. I love the snare, that the pitch sample snare. Ah, awesome.
Fantastic work. So that was Ping the Pineapple by Quantizer. And now, a track titled Aquathene, I guess, by Pake. And Pake says it was made with ardor. Holy snap. I'm a little bit worried this may contain a lot of copyrighted samples. You see, I grouped the tracks by themes. So we have two crazy, awesome, groovy tracks, one after the other. Just as we had two acoustic, awesome tracks together. Oh wow. Yeah, there's no painful highs in here. They're pretty well tamed. It's bright. It's present, but it's not painful. At least to me on these headphones. Oh man, I'm grooving to this. Ha! Liking the classic snare in there. I'd love to see at least some screenshots from the Ardor session this was made with. Also, I'd love to learn some more about what synthesizers were used, what plugins, samplers, etc. Oh yeah. So that was Aquathene by Pake. And now it's time for Outer Mind. And the track is to be announced. Doesn't have a title yet. This was made with LMMS, and he says, it's a work in progress of a tune. It was quite significant hint of Josh and Wes Z style. Sounds used. Lead is not sub FX. Rest of melodics and mid-intro FMish sound is synth 1. Kick was made by himself. Clap, Fairlight 2X sample. Snare, Roland R8 sample. Crash, Alasis HR8 16 sample. Clap, snare, and crash come from the same drum machine sample back. Hexwave drum machines back. Rob Vandenberg asks, wait, is this the same kick? Doof, doof, instruments. Do you know? Yeah. Doof, doof, instruments. We have a breakdown. It's nicely building up. It's interesting because this blends classic trance themes with hardstyle. Alrighty, so that was a work in progress to be announced title by Outer Mind. And now, a track titled Constant by Ovi. And as far as I can tell, this is their first submission. And they say, this is my another attempt at create a song in 4 hours. It was made with Ardor, Odin 2, Geonkick, and Audacity. I'm missing a bass. There's interesting things going on. Though I can tell they are not very experienced with making music, I guess. On the other hand, this is some pretty interesting stuff. Very unorthodox. But I'm missing a bass! There is no bass! Actually, maybe they are not unexperienced. Maybe they just have very, very distinct style. Very unique. Oh, how I'd like to have a bass line come in. That's pretty crazy. Alrighty, that was Constant by Ovi. And now, a track titled Silence Angel by Tronic. Oh, that kick. It's a thick kick. And he writes, this was made with 100% LMMS, nothing extra. In my submission form I ask, anything else? And he says, yes. No, it's called Silence Angel. Maybe it means silent. I don't think it's silence. He says he's using LMMS and nothing else, so no silence. Ooh. I like this change. Pretty nice groove of these arpeggios in the back, and the hi-hat's a little bit harsh. I would just dip in this in here, like a little bit of less hi-hats. I apologize, but we're going to go over time a few minutes. Possibly 10.
Alrighty, so that was Silent Angel by Tronic, and now a track titled Drone Me Out by FM Lathgore. It was made with LMMS. And he also writes, I could go for some kapustnica now. Not sure what he means, or what they mean. Very strange. It feels 12 tone. I can identify a single key that displays it. This is really nice. I've never seen another submission from FM Lathgore, so welcome. Glad to have you here. Yep, so that was Drone Me Out. And now, a track titled Move by Ksawery Treningowski. That's gonna be funky. It was made with ardor. Very minimalist lyrics. I really like this feel in here. Got a funky groove and these strings. And that's it, Move by Ksawery Treningowski. And the final track of this live stream is titled Barely by Kilgore. It was made with ardor. That's all I know. Love the snare. Yep, so I figured this is the perfect song to sunset this livestream to. That's why it's at the end. Very old school. Like this could have been recorded in the 70s. I wouldn't be surprised. Yep. So thank you all for coming to this live stream. Oh, that's lovely. Do I know this melody? Oh, I do. This is a cover. My lo-fi says, now the weekend is officially over. Sorry. Yep. So that's that. Thank you so much for coming. Thanks to everyone who submitted their music and given it up to my criticism and feedback. Also, huge thanks to all the people who are supporting my work financially. If anyone watching thinks my work is important and would like to support me, you can go to patreon.com/unfa or liberapay.com/unfa. And you can give me $1 or $2 every month in there, which is very appreciated. And hopefully the community support will at some point enable me to do this as at least a half-time job. Because right now I have a full-time job and I do this in my spare time. But I have ideas for what I could do if I had more time to spend on making videos and live streams about free and open source music software, music production, audio production. Yep. Right, so thank you all so much. I'm going to see you in the next videos. Now go make some music.